when I started the Japanese series knives, I showed you a knife that came from the early part of the Meiji Restoration, when Japanese cutlers, swordsmiths were looking for ways to, earn a living with the demise of the samurai. And one of the things that they made in that period were things like this, which is not really a samurai's weapon. A samurai lady might carry a knife like this. It's a little tanto. This is, it's a proper Japanese tamahagani made tanto, but it's not, a fighting weapon of the warring period. This is a decorative piece, really. I mean, it's a proper made Japanese knife. With you can take out the little makugi peg, and then it's slightly difficult with one hand. You can take it to bits. You have a nakago, and the nakago is signed with a mei. I haven't got the translation to hand, but the point of this is not actually to show you this knife. I'm just trying to make the video a little bit more interesting, because the knife I'm going to show you is a little bit on the dull side. But you started that period of the Meiji Restoration, 1868 onwards, with the samurais were gone as a class. They were abolished. The right to wear swords was removed. Japanese knife makers started making, Japanese bladesmiths started making things like this. We have companies then, like for example Moki, which was founded in 1907. A lot of their manufacture is knives for other people, and they're in Seki City, as were Makusa. Also, they're also in Seki City. But most of the knives that these people made were knives for other people. So when you see a knife that looks like that, but it's got a little red square on it, an Almar knife, you think you can see where they got where it was made. It sort of becomes, though they're now made in China, but the earlier ones were made by Moki in Seki City, and a lot of Gerbers as well that follow a similar pattern. Well, one company that started making knives in the early 21st century was Spyderco, and their knives are very what's the word, idiosyncratic, I suppose. And this is a relatively early Spyderco. Spyderco, you may know, the first company to put a pocket clip on a knife. And this one is pre pocket clips. We do have the Spyderco logo on the little spider on the handle there, but this is a Seki City made Spyderco. It's one of only 2 Spydercos in my collection, and it gets to earn its place because it's Japanese made, and also because I've had it a long time. I bought this knife for my wife in 20 plus years ago. I don't really know anything about it. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's made of. But it gets to hang on because it is a sort of a classic, and it is Japanese made. Plus, I don't think I could sell it. I mean, I might be surprised. These may be wholly collectible, and somebody somewhere paid a fortune for them. But I don't know, and I don't want to sell it anyway. It says Seki Japan on that side, Spyderco on that side. It is half serrated, half plain, but it's a chisel grind. There's and obviously a sabre grind. You've got a line across it there. It's got the Spyderco hole, and I think that's been there from when they first started making knives. Obviously, Sal Glasser, this is obviously Sal Glasser era, originally made knife sharpeners, and it was only, after a while he came into the making of knives. As a knife, it's perfectly usable and practical, and I bought it for my wife. She worked in a supermarket at the time, and you're forever cutting open cases or cutting the polythene cover on tins and stuff like that, and this was great for that, because she was obviously working on a shop floor, literally a shop floor. You couldn't crack out a machete. You needed something that was small and discreet, and this suited her perfectly well, and it did her for years. In those days, there was no prohibition on locking knives in the UK, so she could have a locking knife without any problem, and being a locking knife, it meant that it was relatively easy to open. And I can even open this on camera, which is, there aren't many knives in my collection that I can do that with reasonably readily. It's got a nice spring action on it. Now, interestingly, this is an integral knife, and that's to say that the handle is made in one piece, a molded piece, and then it's pinned and riveted. So there's just a pin for the back spring and a rivet for the pivot, a rivet for the pivot, which is very reminiscent of the Higo Nakami. So although it's a very modern American designed pocket knife, it still has this resonance of the Japanese simple, plain, folded over piece of steel, molded piece of plastic. But you can see where one and the other come from. Granted, this is now a lockback, but then lockbacks are quite common in Japanese knives. I mean, the couple of the Mokis I've got are lockbacks. I'm quite a fan of lockbacks actually, because these little knives, the lockbacks, there's no clips. I'm not left-handed by nature. I'm right-handed, but my right hand is pretty much paralysed. So I like a knife that's ambidextrous, because that means I can use it with my left hand, but also if I'm sort of cutting on a chopping board type cutting, I put the knife in my right hand, and if I'm standing up, I can cut with it like that while I'm holding whatever it is I'm cutting. So if I'm cutting an onion or whatever, I'll do that with my right hand. So the idea of a knife being entirely ambidextrous is great to me. Not just reversible, but actually it is ambidextrous. The only thing that's one-sided on this knife, or on this knife, well, not on this knife, on this knife, is the nail nick. And of course with the Spyderco, you don't have that issue because you've got the hole on both sides. So this isn't just an easy knife to use. And if you're an ambidextrous person, or not ambidextrous, I just use both hands. It's not really the same thing, because I'm not dexterous with either of them. So I'm not ambidextrous. I don't know what the opposite of non-dexterous, but there we are. Anyway, that's a bit of waffly nonsense. So I've managed to stretch out a video on a very uninspiring, simple little but classic old Spyderco knife to 10 minutes. Just quickly before I bore you all completely stupid. I'll just give you an idea of the size, just because it's of interest to some people. We use cutting edge of 1 3/4 and a blade length of about 1 15/16 overall length, less than 4.5 inches. It's a really small pocket knife. I actually carried a knife called a silver tern, which is of similar sort of size as my pocket knife. Also a lockback, also Japanese made. Unfortunately, it's gone AWOL. For maybe 20 years, certainly more, well over 10. And I was perfectly adequate for most things, although I usually also had a larger knife, one of my big buck knives, somewhere around, for when things were necessary. But for frontline use, for just about everything that I need a knife for, a little knife that size did the job. Anyway, that's a bit of a nonsense video, but I don't know, that might be interesting to some people. That's certainly a nice piece. It's got bits of stag on the ends and the kaiguchi, and it's a proper made, sort of like a Shirasaya but a bit fancy, which is odd, but there we are. Anyway, if you like the stuff, give it a thumbs up, and please remember to subscribe. The last 2 knives will be coming up in the next video as a pair, and that will be the end of my Japanese collection for now, but you never know, there might be more in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.